Hello everyone, thanks for tuning in to today's second video. We're going to have a look at the weather next week to 10 days for today's second video. I'll bring you up to date with all the latest developments in the stratosphere, and we'll have a look at the Asia Climate Centre for the next 40 days as well. So a lot to cram in for today's second video update. JMA Friday was released earlier on today. That's your month-ahead look ahead with the Japanese and CFS V2 models, taking us into the middle of January. There are a few hints of changes ahead for January. Nothing definitive in terms of cold weather, but certainly after an anti-cyclonic Christmas and New Year, looks like the pattern does change a bit as we get through to January. Have a look at that, see what you think. The video is on the homepage just above the snow desk. At the end of this video, I'll talk you through everything's going to be happening at Gazwovids over the weekend. It's going to be a little bit different with the videos over the weekend due to Christmas, but I'll talk about that at the end of the vid. But before I do anything else, I'm going to say a big thank you to our latest donors. So we had a couple of new donors for Gazwovids via PayPal. So I'm going to say big thank you to Hardeep Sahota. Hardeep Sahota has become a donor for Gazwovids, and also big thank you to Michael Prime. Michael Prime has also given Gazwovids a donation. So a big thank you to Hardeep, big thank you to Michael for becoming donors for Gazwovids. If you would like to become a donor for Gazwovids and you've got a PayPal account, what you need to do is come to the Gazwovids.me PayPal page. I'm on that page right now. We link to this in the description at YouTube and on all the pages at Gazwovids. So just come here, sign into the PayPal account, and you can donate any amount of money that you would wish to. And a big thank you to all of the donors for Gazwovids. You're doing something very special to help us fund Gazwovids and keep the website online. So a big thank you to everybody for doing that. Also, you can become a patron for Gazwovids. We've got 51 patrons so far, so a big thank you to all of our patrons for Gazwovids. If you would like to become a patron for Gazwovids, you can come to Gazwovids patron page, sign up for a patron account, and then you can give an ongoing monthly donation. So the idea is that PayPal is kind of like a one-off, Patreon is kind of like an ongoing donation. As I got 51 patrons so far, big thank you to all of the patrons for Gazwovids. Again, you're helping us to fund the website, keep the website online, so big thank you to everybody for doing that. You'll get a mention in videos, whether you donate through PayPal or you become a patron, you'll get a mention in the videos, as long as you want one. A few people have chosen to stay anonymous, that's absolutely fine. Just leave a little note with your donation telling us that you'd like to remain anonymous. We'll say thank you to this anonymous person. You'll know who you are. I'll know who you are. But your name will be kept off the video. So it's absolutely fine if you would like to stay anonymous and do it that way. Of course, you might want to shout out for your website or for your business. So we're happy to do that for you as well. And again, a big thank you to all of the patrons and a big thank you to all of the donors for Gazwovids. Special thank you to our latest donors, again, Hardeep Sahota and Michael Prime. Big thank you to both of you for becoming donors for Gazwovids. Right, so we'll get on with the video then. We're going to start off, of course, with developments in the stratosphere. So this sudden stratospheric warming that I've been talking about over the past couple of weeks. Seems like a very long while since we first started talking about this. I think it's only a couple of weeks, really. But that sudden stratospheric warming is now beginning over Russia. So this yellow area that we see here, yellow and green area that we see here right over in the southeastern corner of Russia, that is the beginning of the sudden stratospheric warming. And watch how on the latest GFS run those colours intensify. There we go, through the 22nd to the 23rd, only Sunday, so it's only a couple of days away. We get those intense red colours appearing across Russia and Siberia. That is a sudden stratospheric warming occurring on the 22nd through the 23rd of December through to Christmas Eve. We've got the blue and purple colours here across the North Pole beginning to get pushed out, beginning to get displaced out in towards Greenland and the North Atlantic and Europe on Christmas Eve as that major warming infiltrates into the North Pole. That's Christmas Day. Looks very dramatic. Sudden stratospheric warming taking place from Russia into the North Pole on Christmas Day. We're talking about something like a 60-degree temperature rise here taking place in the stratosphere over North Pole within around a couple of days. So these are very, very dramatic events that you get with these sudden stratospheric warmings. To lift the temperature up that dramatically really is quite something. And then as we go beyond Christmas, again, we find those blue and purple colours increasingly being displaced out into the north of America and into the Atlantic and into Europe as well. Do we split the polar vortex? Do we split those blue colours on this latest GFS run? Let's see what happens. So again, we've got these yellow colours here over the top of the North Pole. So obviously we've infiltrated the warmth into the North Pole. We've almost certainly at this point reversed the zonal winds. Haven't got a split of the polar vortex yet. And as we go up to the end of GFS run, in fact, we don't split the polar vortex. It gets very close to it, but I don't think we quite split PV on this operational GFS run. However, look what parallel run is doing. So yeah, this is starting off today. There's the beginning of the sudden stratospheric warming over Russia with those yellow colours. Watch how those yellow colours intensify, becoming bright red. Again, this is a very, very significant major warming of the stratosphere occurring in just a few days over Russia and then into the North Pole itself over Christmas. A displacement of the polar vortex with these blue colours out into North America, into the North Atlantic and into Europe as well. And as we run into extended range, so different to what the operational run is doing, because look at this, yes, we do get a split happening in the new year. This is the 2nd of January. You see the two lobes of blue are sort of being pulled apart. So we've got a blue area there across Europe, got a blue area there across Canada and northeastern America. That's the polar vortex splitting at its roots in the stratosphere. Won't be splitting yet on the surface or down at 500 millibars, but certainly in the top levels of the atmosphere where the polar vortex is rooted in the stratosphere, it is splitting apart there in the new year, and a proper split does occur. Look at that. That's a classic split of the polar vortex. In fact, the warming is beginning to re-intensify again on the 6th of January as far as we can go. That warming is starting to re-intensify again over western parts of Russia. So that is a significant split of the polar vortex being indicated by the parallel run. It's interesting that the parallel GFS has generally been more bullish about splitting the polar vortex compared to the operational GFS. We'll find out which one of these is right very shortly, but it is quite interesting how that is happening. GFS and its ensembles are also forecasting a reversal of the zonal winds. So again, this is from weatheriscool.com. You know all about this, I'm sure, if you watch the winter updates. The black line here is the trend line at this point of the year. The green lines, GFS ensembles, and the 3 pink and 1 blue line, the CFS V2, before CFS V2 members. Again, this is the level that we're going to get a reversal of the zonal winds at 10 HPA over the North Pole and the stratosphere. And you see, but quite clearly, over the next week or so, we are getting a reversal of the zonal winds, dropping the GFS ensembles and also all 4 CFS V2 runs, dropping it down between 0 and -20. That tells us again that a reversal of the zonal winds will be taking place, or is forecast to take place, as we go through towards the end of the year. So that's very much being modelled strongly by the GFS and its ensembles. The only question is whether we're going to get the split of the polar vortex. We still don't know that at this stage. ECM is still going for this as well. So this is the ECMWF 120-hour forecast for Christmas Day, and this is from the University of Berlin, of course. Helpfully, they show us where the actual North Pole itself is on these charts, where we've got this black cross just here. So you see, but on Christmas Day, obviously a very, very substantial and significant warming of the stratosphere is taking place. over Russia, Siberia, and moving into the North Pole. Looks like it's Christmas Day when this gets into the North Pole. And then we go through to the 28th of December, and you can see that obviously a very significant warming of the stratosphere is going on over the North Pole itself at this point, as the blue colours indicating the polar vortex being displaced down again into the North of America, into the North Atlantic, and into Europe as well. That's how we look at 240 hours, day 10. Something significant obviously has taken place because those blue colours have been pushed out and replaced them with these orange colours just here, covering the stratosphere of the North Pole at 10 HPA. Looks like we're splitting the vortex as well, because we've got this deeper blue area just here over Canada. We've got this deeper blue area here over Europe. In between, the colours not quite as intense. So again, this would imply it's almost a split of the polar vortex, I think, that's happening there on the 30th of December. And probably if we could go on another day or so, we would see a genuine split of the polar vortex with these sort of cream colours appearing around here. I do think the ECM is implying a split of the polar vortex at 10 HPA in the stratosphere. Moving lower down to 30 HPA, closer to the troposphere, of course, troposphere where weather is taking place, where we get areas of high pressure and low pressure alternating. This is how things look on 27th of December. So still got those blue colours at 30 HPA, lower down towards the troposphere there. But we are seeing the warming infiltrating across Russia down to 30 HPA. And as we go through to day 10, which is the 30th of December, then we see the warming is actually appearing at 30 HPA over the North Pole itself. Again, I think getting quite close to a split on polar vortex, darker blue area there, darker blue area over there, but it's not quite as clear that as it is at 10 HPA. But anyway, it looks like by the time you get through to the end of December, we are moving this warming, stratospheric warming down to 30 HPA, down lower to the lower levels of the stratosphere, closer to the troposphere. This is showing the temperature at 90 degrees north in the Arctic, what's going to happen over the next few days. So this is where we are right now in terms of the temperature at 10 HPA. So it's still a little bit milder than average at the moment. It's going to go a bit cooler over the next couple of days. And then just look how this black line rises from that level there, which is kind of like around minus 75 degrees. It's going to go from minus 75 within around 2 or 3 days to above minus 20. So that is a very, very dramatic rise in the temperature over a really short space of time. Again, it's something like a 60-degree temperature rise, maybe a bit more, happening in just a few days. So really dramatic developments in the stratosphere over the North Pole over Christmas. In terms of the zonal winds from the ECMWF, again, this is at 1 HPA. That's right at the very top of the stratosphere. As high as you can go in terms of the stratosphere, 1 HPA. We see pretty strong zonal wind at 1 HPA at the moment, but it's downhill all the way. So by the time we get through to the end of December, we have gone very negative with the zonal winds. We're also forecasting a reversal of the zonal winds at 10 HPA. With the ECMWF, that's this blue line just here. Again, that's where we are right now. The black dash line shows that drops down to 0, so that's a reversal of the zonal wind at 10 HPA being forecast by the end of December. From the ECMWF, not seeing signs yet of the zonal wind at 30 HPA, that's that black line just there. Not seeing signs of that reversing yet. But of course, that would happen few days further on, because it's always at 10 HPA where this, well, it's usually at 10 HPA where these warmings happen first, and then they infiltrate down to 10 HPA. So basically, it's all still on course, no changes overnight. The Sudden Stratospheric Warming looks like it's going to be occurring. It is going to be occurring, we can say that with confidence now, I think. So starting pretty much now across Siberia and Russia, and then by Christmas Day should be happening over the Arctic, and we've got to wait and see then what effects we get from it. if any, because sometimes you don't actually get an effect from a sudden stratospheric warming. It's not guaranteed that we will get blocking and cold weather out of it. So do bear that in mind. I think a lot of people are assuming that because we're going to get this sudden stratospheric warming, we are going to get blocking and we are going to get cold conditions from it. I suspect there will be blocking from it, but of course it depends where that blocking is sitting. So it's not guaranteed that we will have a beast from the east. But very often our coldest spells are preceded by a sudden stratospheric warming event. So we should wait and see. Right, these are the GFS temperature and precipitation ensembles for the next couple of weeks. We're looking at London today. The red line here is the 30-year upper air temperature average for London. Solidly above average through to New Year, really. So that's the 1st of January just there. This is where we're starting off at. That's where we are by the 1st of January. And in between then, it's basically above average all the way. Then you'll notice beyond the new year through the first week of January, which is in the extended range, so it's unreliable, but we have got quite a few cold outliers now starting to appear. Now, we can't say that's definitely down to the sudden stratospheric warming. It probably isn't. It's probably just the variation within the model output. But definitely a few cold outliers, which something wasn't seen yesterday. A few cold outliers beginning to appear there in the first week of January. However, most ensemble members are still keeping things pretty mild through the first week of January. So I think it's probably about 80-20 split between the ensemble members that keep things mild through the first week of January and those that are trying to turn things colder. Precipitation-wise, it looks really dry. I have got a bit of a deluge coming up on Sunday, and that could last into Christmas Eve down in the southern part of the country. But once that's done with, basically we're dry then through to the end of the year. One or two rogue sort of precipitation spikes, but not many of them, and it looks very dry really closing out the year, and probably staying very dry into the early part of January as well. So high pressure, generally quite mild conditions, but also very dry for the end of the year. Temperature anomalies from the 21st through to the 29th of December coming out milder than average for UK and for Ireland. In fact, most parts of Europe having above average temperatures in the week ahead. Precipitation anomalies look like that. Drier than average for the north, close to average for England and Wales. That's probably mainly down to Sunday's wet weather. Once that gets out of the way, I think these will be trending onto the drier than average side. This is how the GFS 6 o'clock operational run is looking for Christmas Eve. So there's still a weather front messing around on Christmas Eve left over from Sunday. That's in that sort of position, bring rain to the south probably through the course of Sunday. But that gets out of the way. High pressure takes over for Christmas, so a lot of dry and fine weather for Christmas, and this carries on excuse me, into the period between Christmas and New Year. We're running up to New Year. We get to day 10, which is New Year's Eve, and we've got high pressure centred to our south, low pressure's out to the north and west, so looking pretty mild and starting to turn more unsettled than the north. Some showery outbreaks of rain beginning to move in from off the Atlantic. Through the first week of January, high pressure is strengthening close to the UK, so lots of dry weather continuing through the first week of January. That's how we finish up as far as we can go with the GFS today is to Sunday the 6th of January. And still the high pressure is sitting just to our south, although you'll notice we are pulling down so much colder air into Scandinavia, so a bit of a northerly plunge is just to our northeast. But essentially this is still mild up to the very end of the GFS run, with the air coming up from the middle of the Atlantic Ocean. This is how the parallel 6 o'clock run is looking. So again, this will become the operational GFS next year. Again, we start off on Christmas Eve, still with that weather front messing around in the south, could produce quite a damp and dreary scene for some parts of the country on Christmas Eve. But by Christmas Day and Boxing Day, the high pressure has taken over, bringing lots of dry and relatively mild weather for the south, maybe a little bit cooler up in the north. As we go between Christmas and New Year, we keep a lot of high pressure going just to our south, but it's a little bit more unsettled up to the north and west, so some showery rain for Scotland and Northern Ireland heading up towards New Year, but for England and Wales, lots of dry weather. That's how we look at day 10, New Year's Eve, starting to move that high pressure towards Scandinavia, you'll notice. And in the extended range, we actually inflate that area of high pressure over Scandinavia. So we're going into the first week of January here. We're starting to pull winds in from an easterly direction. We get this low pressure cutting underneath the Scandinavian high to our southwest, which eventually starts to pull in some really quite bitter air from the east. So if you saw last night's Christmas update, you'll know that the operational GFS midday run yesterday was going for this Scandinavian high through the first week of January. Now the parallel run has gone in that direction. So there may be something within the GFS now, right at the very extended range through the first week of January. It may be starting to pick up on something, but at the moment it's very inconclusive. It's very weak signal because it's so far away. We'll know more about the first week of January, I would have thought, after Christmas. But it's possible the GFS, along with these cold outliers that we see within the GFS summit, it is possible that the GFS is starting to pick up on something happening through the first week of January. That's how the ECM is looking. So again, we're high pressure taking over during Christmas, bringing lots of dry and fine weather. And as we extend out, you see again the high pressure is building very close to the country, going up towards New Year's Eve. That's how we look as we get to New Year's Eve. High pressure centred just to our south, low pressure out to the north and west. So for England and Wales, stays pretty dry really up to New Year's Eve. For Scotland and Northern Ireland, it's a little bit more unsettled, and it's generally quite mild. The extended ECM was updated today, so this is only seen by pro-Mets, really, or people that are able to pay a lot of money, but occasionally the charts do get shared by pro-Mets on Twitter. This is our good friend Michael Ventris, shown a few tweets from Michael Ventris over the past few weeks. So this morning Michael Ventris was tweeting the week 6 ECMWF forecast for January. On a Friday, the ECM updates to, I think it updates to 46 days, which is, I say, 2 weeks. On a Tuesday, it updates for the 30-day period, and we do show that from the Hungarian Met Office. Every Tuesday, we show the 30-day update, but on a Friday, it updates, or a Thursday night to Friday, it updates for 6 weeks, and we haven't got access to that at the moment. There was talk a little while ago about Copernicus, the Copernicus website, starting to show the ECMWF 30 and 46 day charts. They haven't done it yet. I keep looking, but maybe they will next year. They said they was going to add more long-range seasonal models to their long-range suite of models, and they've done that. They've added the German model, for example, the DWD. So maybe next year they might start showing the 30 and 46 day ECM updates at Copernicus. It would be really nice if they did. But anyway, we do sometimes get a look at this from the pro-Mets on Twitter. Michael Ventris was tweeting about this this morning. Take a look at the ECMWF Week 6 forecast late January. Perhaps the model is feeling the weak El Nino, but we all know there's a Sudden Stratospheric Warming event at hand, which leads to negative NAO developments. Do these weak El Nino states favour Sudden Stratospheric Warming events? Does the stratospheric warming event even matter? Michael Ventris asking some pretty pertinent questions there. But this is the chart he was tweeting. So this is the 500 millibar height anomaly from the ECMWF for week 6. Was updated overnight. And this is for January the 28th. Through to the 4th of February. Monday the 28th of January to Monday the 4th of February. It sees this very strong block around Greenland, high pressure, blocking things out across Greenland. Low pressure is underneath it through the Atlantic and going into Europe. And so this looks very cold for both sides of the Atlantic. This will pull cold air into the eastern side of America, but it would also pull cold air into central and western parts of Europe. There is an idea that if it's cold in the east of America, it will be mild in the west of Europe and in the UK, but we can't get cold in the west of Europe. But that's wrong. If you get the blocking in the right position, it is in the right position there, you can get it cold on both sides of the Atlantic. Finally, I'll just leave you with the Beijing Climate Centre. These are the 500 millibar heights broken down into 10-day periods. The first 10-day period will take us from the 21st through to the 30th of December, with below average heights to our west, above average heights down to our south, and also up to the north. But we're in these mild southwesterly winds. That's starting off quite unsettled, but we know high pressure's taking over by Christmas. The next 10-day period is from New Year's Eve through to the 9th of January, with high pressure dominating close to the country, just not so dry, quiet weather, quite mild, bring wind up from a southerly direction. But then look what happens in the next 10-day period. This is the 10th to the 19th of January, and it's building above average heights over Greenland and over towards eastern Canada, below average heights as a trough underneath across the UK. That looks much colder. We'd be bringing the wind in from a northeasterly direction there, and this goes on into the next 10-day period, which is days 31 to 40. It's the 20th to the 29th of January, still with that blocking close to Greenland, the below average heights over and to the south of the UK, and again we'd be pulling wind in from an east or northeasterly direction, looking really quite cold and wintry, not just for the UK, but for much of Northern Europe as well. Is that down to the weak El Nino? Is that down to the Sudden Stratospheric Warming? Is it a combination of both? We'll never know, but it's certainly very interesting. But around the time you would expect to start getting blocking and colder conditions after Sudden Stratospheric Warming, the Beijing Climate Centre is seeing it, as is the ECMWF. So it's been a very mild start to this winter. There hasn't been a lot for anybody who likes cold weather to enjoy, but brace yourself, because it could well be that next month things are going to start getting very, very interesting. All the signals are still there that next month, January, could be one to watch. Right, so that's it for your videos today. Now, I'd say things are a little bit different over the weekend. So there's no week ahead forecast tomorrow. We'll have a regular week to 10-day video update tomorrow, and also the CFS 6 months look at. I know how much you all enjoy that. CFS 6 months look at, and your week to 10-day video update with the latest stratospheric developments tomorrow. Sunday, there'll be another week to 10-day video update. And I think on Sunday we're going to do the ECM and Meteo France seasonal model update. So that's ahead on Sunday. There may be an ensembles watch if the GFS ensembles start to move over this weekend as well. And then Christmas Eve, that's when weekend forecast is going to be. We always do the weekend forecast on Christmas Eve, covering the full Christmas period. Oh, there's one final Christmas update to come tomorrow as well. So then weekend forecast will be on Christmas Eve. And that will cover the week ahead. And then on Christmas Day, we've got the historic video looking at winter of 1968-1969. I've got to get that recorded at some point over the weekend, and that'll be the Christmas Day historic video, as I'll take the day off, I think, on Christmas Day. I think I've earned that. Right, so thanks very much for watching, and come back over the weekend for all of the updates. Bye for now.